How has serving the mission of the church cost you? Have you ever had to make some sacrifices and miss out on events? What has been the reward? The Gospel according to Mark is a powerful yet brief account of the life of Jesus Christ. The beginning of Mark's Gospel differs from Matthew and Luke, as it does not have a detailed birth narrative. It begins with the story of John the Baptist, who prepares the way for Jesus. When Jesus enters the narrative, he initiates his ministry by calling in reinforcements. Jesus understands that ministry is not meant to be a solitary mission in search of understanding. And that brings us to our key verse for today, which reads, "And if you do not carry your own cross and follow me, you cannot be my disciple." Luke chapter 14, verse 27. Christ says if you make a decision to follow, to enter into a relationship with him, then these are the conditions. If you do not hate your father, mother, wife, children, brethren, sisters, and even own life, you cannot be his disciple. This is not a verse inviting us to hate our families or ourselves. God is love and desires that we love ourselves, our families, and our neighbors as God loves us. However, this is a verse that prioritizes our relationship with Jesus. Using contemporary language, the one who refuses to bear the cross assigned by God cannot be his disciple. Taking up our cross is a daily and persistent calling and a mark of being his disciple. It is not finished at conversion with the stopping of a few bad habits and personal agendas. Just as one should not begin the construction of a building without knowing what it will take to finish, so Jesus instructs the crowd not to begin the disciples' journey without reflecting on what it will take to finish. The word for count used here suggests counting with the intent of fully understanding the consequences, good or bad. Not being a disciple is to have no other option but to depend on other fallible human beings for acceptance and guidance. To be a disciple is to have the assurance that the one who knows all has covered all the bases and always has the greatest good properly in focus. Yet it comes at a high price of sacrificing comfort, convenience, gains, pleasures, and position in the world to follow God's will. That is not to say we are called to be poor or lacking, but that whatever we have is subject to Christ instead of our own desires. The world would say, count what you have in your hand. Christ would say, count what I have in my hand. Using contemporary language to paraphrase verse 31, we could say that when we are on the job and there are more against us than for us, are we willing to go all the way for Jesus? If God calls us to a ministry in a drug-infested community, are we willing to hang in there regardless? Do we see opportunities for manifestations of God and his glory when the enemies of our minds, hearts, and souls surround us? Christ rhetorically answers these questions in these verses. We should not quickly jump onto the disciple bandwagon unless we have a clear idea of what the cost entails. The Greek word baluo means to consider, to converse, or to debate, and katizo means to sit down. The sitting down comes before the consulting. Christ is saying that accepting the call to be a disciple is a matter of careful thought and unhurried reflection in order to fully digest all that is at stake. There are many barriers in life to being a disciple. Some barriers are relational, and some are circumstantial. Christ followers should be fully aware that becoming a disciple is a costly endeavor and not to be entered into lightly. Here's our lesson. Some believe God only calls those who are of a certain social status, but it is clear that in these selected verses that Jesus calls anyone who is willing to come and follow. What would the world be like if more people were willing to humble themselves and follow the teachings of a carpenter's son? How would our communities change if more people knew that Jesus came from Nazareth, the poverty-stricken area that did not produce royalty by society's standards? Jesus called other unlikely people to participate in his work of sharing the good news of God's salvation and resisting injustice.